The Galactic Council chamber stood as a monument to arrogance, carved from living crystal that had witnessed 10,000 years of history. Its walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, each one representing a civilization that had earned its place among the stars. 63 species sat in judgment, their representatives perched on platforms that floated in precise hierarchy. The higher you sat, the more ancient your lineage, the greater your power. Humanity's platform rested at the bottom. Ambassador Sarachin stood in the center of the chamber, her dark suit crisp despite the 72-hour journey through hyperspace. Around her, the translation field crackled with barely concealed contempt as alien voices rose in mockery. The humans wished to speak of trade agreements, rasped Lord Zarthan, his chitinous plates clicking with amusement. The insectoid delegate's compound eyes glittered like shattered glass. What could they possibly offer? Primitive combustion engines? Chemical weapons they barely understand. Laughter rippled through the chamber, a cacophony of chirps, growls, and harmonic tones that the translation field rendered as unified derision. Sarah's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. We offer partnership, shared knowledge, a chance to what? High Arbiter Ixaxa interrupted, his three-tone voice dripping with condescension. The reptilian leader leaned forward on his throne, which sat highest of all. You have been spacefaring for less than a century. We have conquered entropy itself. What lesson could you possibly teach us? More laughter. Sarah felt it like physical blows, not just the sound, but the deliberate cruelty behind it. This was not debate. It was theater. Humanity had been invited here not to negotiate, but to be reminded of its place. Behind her, the junior diplomat shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Torres whispered urgently, Sarah, we should request a recess. This is... No. Sarah's voice was iron-wrapped in silk. They want us to run. That's the point. She turned slowly, meeting the eyes of each delegate. Some looked away. Most did not bother. For 3 years, she began, her voice rising, we have requested fair trade status. We have asked for representation in border disputes. We have followed every protocol, respected every tradition. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. And for 3 years, you have treated us like children begging at the adults' table. High Arbiter Ixaxa's smile was all teeth, because that is precisely what you are. The chamber erupted in approval, hoots, clicks, and harmonic chords that praised the Arbiter's wit. Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. Not anger, not shame, clarity. She reached slowly into her jacket and withdrew a small device, a communications node no larger than her palm. Every weapon scanner in the chamber had analyzed it upon entry and dismissed it as harmless. They were right. It was not a weapon. It was a signal. You want to know what humanity can teach you? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper now, but in the sudden silence, it carried like thunder. We can teach you what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. She pressed a node. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the sky outside the crystal walls began to tear. It did not crack or shatter. Reality itself warped, folding like paper in invisible hands. The light from Allard Prime's 3 suns bent into impossible angles, colors that had no name bleeding to the fabric of space. The laughter died. Alarms screamed throughout the council complex. Automated defense systems activated, turrets rising from hidden ports, shield generators thrumming to life. But every weapon that locked onto the anomaly immediately lost target acquisition. Their sensors reported the same impossible data. The target was everywhere and nowhere, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. High Arbiter Ixaxa rose from his throne, his 3 voices united in shock. What have you done? Sarah did not answer. She was watching the sky with the same expression a parent wears when their child takes their first steps. Pride mixed with relief, mixed with the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same. The tear in space widened. Through it came something that should not exist. The ship was enormous. 3 kilometers of dark metal that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. Its hull was not smooth but tessellated, each panel shifting subtly as if the entire vessel was breathing. Energy crackled along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. mathematics made visible, equations that bent the laws of physics simply by existing. At its bow, letters glowed in stark white, Earthshaker. The Galactic Council Chamber, which had stood for 10 millennia and witnessed the rise and fall of empires, was completely silent. Sarah Chen's voice, when she finally spoke, was gentle, almost kind. You called us primitives. You said we had nothing to teach you. She smiled, and it did not reach her eyes. Let me introduce you to humanity's first multidimensional warship. It exists in 17 dimensions simultaneously. It can phase through your shields like they aren't there. And its weapons... She paused, letting them imagine. Its weapons harvest energy from the space between realities. High Arbor Ixax's voice cracked for the first time in his 3-century reign. This is impossible. Dimensional theory was theoretical. Was theoretical, Sarah corrected, for you? Above them, the Earthshaker rotated slowly, a predator showing its teeth. Mockery had become terror, and humanity's real story was just beginning. The project that would birth the Earthshaker began with a funeral. Dr. Samantha Chin stood in the observation deck of Lunar Station Prometheus, watching as another test vessel vanished into the dimensional rift and never came back. That made 7 ships lost, 14 crew members dead, and still, humanity's leaders demanded results. We're killing them, Dr. Marcus Webb said quietly beside her. The astrophysicist's hands trembled slightly. He had designed the navigational systems for that last ship. We're sending people into something we don't understand and calling it progress. Samantha's reflection in the reinforced glass looked older than her 42 years. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Silver streaked her black hair. The cost of genius. People said she knew better. This was the cost of obsession. We understand more than we did, she replied, her voice mechanical from repetition. Each failure teaches us. Each loss brings us closer. Closer to what? A weapon? Closer to survival. She turned to face him, and Marcus flinched at the intensity in her eyes. Samantha Chun had once been known for her warmth, her infectious enthusiasm for the mysteries of a universe. That woman had died somewhere between Test 4 and Test 5, burned away by the same dimensional energies she sought to harness. You weren't at the Council's response to our application for protected species status, she continued, her voice flat. I was. They laughed, Marcus. Not political dismissal, actual laughter. The Zoran delegate said humanity's extinction would be statistically insignificant to galactic biodiversity. She pulled up a holographic display, her fingers dancing through streams of data that would have looked like chaos to anyone else. To Samantha, it was poetry, violent, dangerous poetry that promised either salvation or damnation. We have maybe 50 years before a major power decides Earth's resources are worth the paperwork of annexation. Maybe less if the wrong warlord has the wrong bad day. She looked back at the empty space where the test ship had been. Those 14 people died so that billions could live. I will carry that weight, but I will not stop. The dimensional drive was born from madness and mathematics in equal measure. Traditional faster-than-light travel moved through hyperspace, a parallel dimension where distance is compressed. Effective, but limited. You were still moving through space, just through a shortcut. Samantha's theory was simpler and infinitely more complex. Why move through space at all when you could step between dimensions entirely? Slip sideways into a reality where your destination was your origin, then slip back. The problem was that most dimensions were hostile to matter as humans understood it. Enter one unprepared, and your atoms would forget how to be atoms. You would not die. You would cease to have ever been alive. Your existence erased retroactively from a quantum foam of reality itself. Unless you could create a bubble of stabilized space-time around your vessel, a pocket of real space that could exist anywhere, anywhere. 7 failures, 14 deaths. And on the 8th attempt, for exactly 3.7 seconds, test vessel Icarus existed in 2 dimensions simultaneously before its generator overloaded, and it rematerialized in normal space. Empty. The crew had vanished, but the ship had survived. Samantha had laughed and cried at the same time. 5 more years of refinement. 32 more tests with increasingly sophisticated AI pilots. Only 3 more losses. By year 17 of the project, they could phase through solid matter, appear anywhere within a light-year radius, and maintain dimensional stability for up to 6 hours. By year 19, the first prototype warship was under construction. By year 20, Samantha Chun had sacrificed her marriage, her health, and any semblance of a normal life on the altar of humanity's survival. She looked at herself in the mirror some mornings and barely recognized the haunted woman staring back. But the Earthshaker was nearly complete. The test. Governor Elena Rodriguez had never expected to become a warrior. The colony at Nova Prime was supposed to be peaceful, a farming world, a fresh start for 10,000 settlers seeking simpler lives. Elena had been elected governor because she was good with logistics, with managing crop rotations and water distribution, and the 1,000 mundane details that made civilization function. Then Admiral Jarin Kressno's fleet arrived. The Crescent Dominion was small as galactic powers went, but viciously opportunistic. They specialize in claiming undefended worlds, then charging inhabitants for protection. It was extortion dressed in diplomatic language, backed by ships that could glass a planet from orbit. Kressno's message was simple: submit or die. Elena's response was delivered with the calm of someone who knew a secret. You have 72 hours to leave our system. Kressno had laughed so hard the transmission cut out briefly. When he recovered, his mandibles clicked in amusement. Governor Rodriguez, I have 40 warships. You have farming equipment and desperation. Be reasonable. 72 hours, Elena repeated and cut the channel. What Admiral Kressno did not know was that Nova Prime had been selected as a colony site for reasons beyond agriculture. Its location placed it perfectly along the dimensional fault lines that the Earthshaker would eventually use for travel. And the farming equipment buried beneath those fields? Prototype weapons that made conventional armaments look like stone axes. When Kressno's fleet attacked on Hour 73, they encountered defensive systems that operated on principles the galaxy had believed impossible. Shields that existed partially out of phase with reality, making them effectively invulnerable. Railguns that fired projectiles through dimensional rifts, hitting targets from angles that should not exist. The battle lasted 4 minutes. 38 of Kressno's 40 ships were destroyed. The remaining 2 fled in opposite directions, spreading the story of Nova Prime across the galaxy faster than any transmission could travel. Humanity's secret was out. The countdown to the council meeting had begun. The demonstration, the silence in the council chamber stretched like a physical thing, thick and suffocating. High Arbiter Ixaxa was the first to find his voice, though it cracked with uncertainty. This is a trick. Holographic projection. Human desperation made visible. But even as he spoke, his crest, which flared only in response to genuine threat, was fully extended, scales bristling with evolutionary alarm. Sarah Chun did not respond immediately. She was watching the readings on her communication node, monitoring the Earthshaker systems with the calm of someone who had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her mind. Finally, she looked up at the Arbiter. Would you like a demonstration? Absolutely not. The shout came from Ambassador Veller of the Peltic Confederacy, her crystalline form resonating with panic. You cannot use an untested superweapon inside Aller Prime's atmosphere. One malfunction could. It's been tested extensively, Sarah interrupted, her voice soft but carrying through the amplified chamber. 3 years of live-fire exercises. 17 successful dimensional translations. 0 catastrophic failures since the prototype phase. She smiled thinly. We are not reckless, Ambassador. We are thorough. Lord Zarthan, who had mocked her minutes earlier, spoke from his platform. His translator rendered his clicks as careful, measured words. The universal signal that an insectoid was thinking faster than they wanted to show. How long have you been developing this? 23 years, Sarah replied. Since the day your predecessor told our delegation that humanity's concerns were too primitive to waste council time on. She pulled up a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber, a timeline punctuated with data that made several delegates lean forward despite themselves. Every rebuff, every dismissal, Every time you laughed at our scientists or ignored our warnings about border raiders. The timeline highlighted each incident in cold blue light. We were watching, learning, and building. Dr. Samantha Chen's face appeared in the hologram, aged and exhausted, recorded during one of the project's rare press updates. Her words played for counsel. We asked for protection. They refused. We asked for fair trade. They refused. We asked to be treated as equals. They laughed, so we stopped asking. We stopped waiting for someone else to value our lives. And we started building the tools to ensure that whether they respected us or not, they would never again be able to ignore us. The recording ended. The silence that followed was different now. No longer shock, but calculation. Every species in the chamber was reassessing, running new simulations of galactic power dynamics in their enhanced cognitive systems. High Arbiter Zixaxa descended from his throne, an unprecedented act. In 10,000 years of council history, no arbiter had ever left their seat during session. He approached Sarah slowly, his size, 3 meters of scaled muscle and predatory evolution, meant to intimidate. Sarah did not move. You realize, Zixaxa said carefully, that this changes everything. The balance of power, trade agreements, defense pacts, everything we have built for millennia. Yes, Sarah agreed. It does. And you expect us to simply accept this? To let humanity walk in and overturn the entire galactic order? Sarah's expression softened. And for the first time since entering the chamber, she looked less like a diplomat and more like what she truly was, a woman who had carried an impossible burden for far too long. We don't want to overturn anything, High Arbiter. We want a seat, a real one, not at the bottom of your hierarchy as a joke, but as partners who have proven we deserve to be here. She gestured to the Earthshaker above. That ship, it's not for conquest. It's for protection. So that no one ever again can look at humanity and decide our survival is optional. Zixaxa studied her for a long moment. His third eye, which typically remained closed, opened slowly, a gesture seeing truth beyond deception. Show me, he said finally. Show us what the ship can do. Sarah nodded and spoke into her comm node. Earthshaker Actual, this is Ambassador Chun. Authorization, Dimensional Dawn. Execute pattern, Delta 7. Above them, the massive warship moved. But move was the wrong word. It did not thrust or accelerate. It simply stopped being in one location and started being in another. A 3-kilometer vessel that teleported 200 kilometers into space between heartbeats. It appeared over the Council's defensive fleet. 300 warships that represented combined might of 63 civilizations. Not threatening them, simply existing above them. A statement made manifest. Then it phased. Its hull became translucent, ghostly, as it shifted partially out of their dimension. Weapons that locked on couldn't maintain target. Sensors reported the ship was simultaneously present and absent. Quantum uncertainty made macroscopic. And then it was back where it started, solid and whole, as if it had never moved at all. The Earthshaker hung in the sky, like a dark promise. This is what humanity can do, Sarah said quietly. Imagine what we will do if you force us to. High Arbiter Zixaxa returned to his throne slowly. When he spoke again, his voice carried no mockery, no derision, just the tired wisdom of a leader who recognized when the world had changed beneath his feet. The Council recognizes humanity's petition for full member status. All in favor. The vote was unanimous. As the chamber erupted in frantic diplomatic activity, species scrambling to be the first to establish favorable relations with humanity, Sarah Chin allowed herself a small, private smile. Governor Rodriguez would be pleased. Dr. Samantha Chun could finally rest. And humanity? Humanity had just taught the galaxy its most important lesson. Never mistake patience for weakness. Never confuse silence for acceptance. And never, ever underestimate a species desperate enough to tear holes in reality itself. 3 hours after the vote, Sarah Chin sat alone in her assigned quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel Promise of Earth. The adrenaline had finally drained from her system, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion that made even breathing feel like effort. Her hands trembled as she poured herself a glass of water. She had carried the weight of humanity's gambit for 6 months, ever since the Security Council had approved the demonstration. 6 months of preparation, of contingency plans within contingency plans, of nightmares where the Earthshaker malfunctioned and ignited a war humanity couldn't win. The door chimed. She didn't need to check the monitor to know who it was. "Come in, Ambassador Torres." The younger diplomat entered, his earlier nervousness replaced by something close to awe. "The preliminary reports are coming in. 17 species have already requested formal trade negotiations. The Peltic Confederacy wants to discuss joint research initiatives. Even the Zoran," he paused, shaking his head in disbelief. "Even the Zoran have sent an apology for their delegates' remarks about our extinction being statistically insignificant." Sarah managed a wan smile. "Fear makes excellent fertilizer for diplomacy. Is that what we want? For them to fear us?" "No." She set down her glass with deliberate care. "But I'll accept their fear if it keeps them from deciding our planet is worth conquering. Respect born from terror is still respect, at least until we can earn the genuine kind." Torres moved to the viewport, staring out at the Earthshaker. The massive warship floated in geosynchronous orbit above Aller Prime, a silent sentinel that had already changed the galaxy's political calculus. Dr. Chen sent a message. "She wants to speak with you." Sarah's expression softened. "How is she?" "The medical team says she collapsed in the observation bay immediately after the demonstration. Exhaustion, malnutrition, neural stress from too many years pushing her cognitive implants beyond safe limits." Torres's voice carried equal parts admiration and sadness. "They say she gave humanity everything, and it nearly killed her." "Nearly," Sarah repeated, "but not quite. Samantha Chin is too stubborn to die before seeing her work validated." She stood, wincing at the protest from muscles that had been locked in tension for hours. "Tell her I'll visit as soon as I can. First, I need to address the crew of the Earthshaker. They deserve to hear from someone that what they did today mattered." Captain James Okonkwo stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship, watching his crew celebrate with a restrained professionalism that came from years of military discipline. They had drilled for this moment countless times. The reveal, the demonstration, the implicit threat wrapped in technological superiority. But no simulation could capture the reality of it. The weight of every eye in the galaxy suddenly focused on them. Captain, his executive officer, Commander Lu Feng, approached with a datapad. "We're receiving hails from, well, everyone. The Dominion wants specifications on our defensive capabilities. The Thrace hegemony is offering mineral rights to 3 systems in exchange for technical consultation. And there's a very politely worded inquiry from the Council's Military Oversight Committee about whether we'd be willing to demonstrate our weapon systems in a controlled environment." Okonkwo's laugh was humorless. "They want to know if we're bluffing about the reality-harvesting weapons. Are we?" The captain's expression gave nothing away. "That commander is classified at a level that even I don't have full clearance for. What I know is this. Dr. Chen doesn't bluff, and neither does Ambassador Chen. If they said our weapons do something, then our weapons do that thing." He paused. "Whether we'd actually use them is a different question entirely." Lu understood the implication. The Earthshaker's greatest weapon wasn't its dimensional drive, or its exotic armaments. It was uncertainty. The galaxy now had to operate under the assumption that humanity could do everything Saracen claimed. And more, the truth of those capabilities was less important than the belief in them. "Sir, we have an encrypted transmission from Earth. Priority Alpha." Okonkwo straightened. Priority Alpha meant the message came from the Secretary General herself. He moved to his command chair, accepting the datapad Lu handed him. The message was brief. "Captain Okonkwo, history was made today because of your crew's discipline and your steady hand. But understand this, the easy part is over. We have announced ourselves to the galaxy as a power to be reckoned with. Now comes the hard part, proving we deserve that position through more than just fear. You are hereby authorized to accept diplomatic visitors aboard the Earthshaker. Show them our capabilities, but also show them our character. Let them see that humanity wields power with wisdom. The eyes of 2 species are upon you now, our own and everyone else's. Make us proud. Secretary General Amara Okafor. Okonkwo read the message twice, then looked up at his crew. Young faces, old faces, humans from every corner of Earth and her colonies. They had volunteered for this mission, knowing it might end in their deaths, either from dimensional instability or from being the first casualties of a war they'd helped provoke. Instead, they had become legends. All hands, he spoke into the ship-wide comm, his deep voice carrying to every deck, every station. This is the captain. What we did today will echo through history. Our children's children will learn about this moment. But let's be clear about what we actually accomplished. He paused, choosing his words carefully. We did not win a war. We prevented one. We did not conquer our enemies. We forced them to see us as equals. And we did not become the monsters we fought against. We became the shield that ensures Earth and every human colony will never again be dismissed as insignificant. Through the viewport, he could see the Galactic Council's defense fleet maintaining a respectful distance. Respectful. That word would have been impossible just hours ago. The Secretary General has authorized us to host diplomatic visitors. Some will come out of curiosity, others out of fear. A few, hopefully more than a few, will come out of genuine interest in partnership. Regardless of why they come, we will show them the best of humanity, professionalism, innovation, and the strength that comes from standing united. He could see the pride in his crew's faces, but also the exhaustion. They had been at battle stations for 6 hours, ready to defend against any hostile response to their appearance. Stand down from combat readiness. Rotate to standard watch schedules. And get some rest. Tomorrow, we begin the real work of turning fear into friendship. The price of progress. In the medical bay of Lunar Station Prometheus, Dr. Samantha Chen lay in a regeneration pod, watching holographic feeds of the council session on repeat. She had collapsed minutes after Sarah activated the signal beacon, her body finally surrendering to years of abuse in service of an impossible dream. But she had stayed conscious long enough to see it. The Earthshaker, tearing through dimensional barriers as easily as stepping through a doorway. The Council, struck silent by the culmination of her life's work. Humanity, finally treated as equals. Worth it, she thought, even as the medical monitors showed the extent of the damage she'd done to herself. Neurological degradation from too many years using cognitive enhancement implants at maximum capacity. Cellular breakdown from exposure to dimensional radiation. Malnutrition, because she'd often forgotten to eat when lost in calculations. The pod would repair most of it. Modern medicine could work miracles, given time. But some scars ran deeper than flesh. The door to medical bay opened. Dr. Marcus Webb entered, his face drawn with concern, and something else, an emotion Samantha couldn't quite identify. Guilt, perhaps. You should be celebrating, she said, her voice hoarse from disuse. We did it, Marcus. Against every odd, every setback, every voice that said it was impossible. We built a ship that exists in 17 dimensions simultaneously. We lost good people building it, Marcus replied quietly. 14 deaths, Samantha. 14 people who trusted us, who believed in the mission, and who never lived to see it succeed. I know. The words came out as barely more than a whisper. I know every name, every face. I dream about them sometimes, standing at the edge of dimensional rifts, asking me if it was worth it. And what do you tell them? Samantha was quiet for a long moment, watching the holofeed replay the moment Sarachin activated the beacon. The moment everything changed. I tell them that billions of people, humans who will never know their names, are alive because of their sacrifice. That Earth stands sovereign because they were brave enough to venture into the unknown, that their deaths gave humanity a future. She turned her head to look at Marcus directly. But I also tell them I'm sorry. Because no equation, no strategic necessity, no grand vision of humanity's survival makes the cost of those 14 lives any less real. Marcus moved closer to the regeneration pod. Sarachin wants a visit. To thank you personally. She doesn't need to thank me. She carried her own impossible weight. Samantha managed a weak smile. We're quite a pair, aren't we? the scientist who broke the laws of physics, and the diplomat who weaponized the results. History will either remember us as heroes or as the architects of humanity's worst mistake. The Council voted unanimously to grant us full member status. I think history's verdict is already in. For now, Samantha cautioned, but the galaxy is vast, and fear breeds resentment. We've made ourselves into something the established powers must respect. But respect and acceptance aren't the same thing. There will be tests, challenges to our authority, species that want to prove humanity's ascension was a fluke. She closed her eyes, suddenly exhausted despite the pod's rejuvenating effects. The Earthshaker bought us a seat at the table. Now we have to prove we deserve to keep it. The first test. It came sooner than anyone expected. 72 hours after the Council vote, a Thrace hegemony battlecruiser entered the Epsilon Eridani system without authorization. The system was home to a human mining colony, 3,000 workers, and their families extracting rare elements from asteroid fields. The hegemony had filed a territorial claim on Epsilon Eridani 60 years ago, before humanity had even achieved faster-than-light travel. By galactic law, that claim gave them rights to the system's resources. By human law, the colony had been there for 15 years, and possession trumped ancient paperwork. The hegemony commander, a four-armed warrior named Thrax Keln, broadcast a simple message: evacuate within 48 hours or be removed by force. Governor Rodriguez, still riding high from her victory at Nova Prime, sent an immediate response. No. The crisis landed on Sarah Chen's desk before she'd even finished her first cup of coffee in her new office at Galactic Council headquarters. Full member status came with an actual office, a staff of 17, and a direct line to Earth's government. It also came with the responsibility to handle situations exactly like this. She called an emergency session of the Territorial Disputes Committee, a body that had previously dismissed human concerns without even bothering to review the cases. Now, all 15 member species attended personally. The law is clear, insisted Counselor Varix of the hegemony, his battle armor gleaming under the chamber lights. We filed our claim according to established protocol. Human ignorance of galactic law does not supersede legitimate territorial rights. The law, Sarah countered calmly, also states that territorial claims expire after 50 years without substantive development. Your claim is 60 years old, and there has been no hegemony presence in Epsilon Eridani for the entire duration. Our colony has been actively developing the system for 15 years. Mining operations are not development. They are resource extraction. Then by that logic, your entire empire is built on expired claims, since the hegemony's primary economy is resource extraction. Sarah let that statement hang in the air for a moment. Unless you're arguing that there's one standard for established powers and another for newcomers. The chamber stirred. Several delegates who had previously sided with the hegemony suddenly looked uncomfortable. Sarah had just turned this into a question of principles rather than specific legal interpretation, and principles could be universally applied. This is a transparent attempt to test humanity's resolve, Varix growled. You hide behind legal arguments while your warship lurks at the edge of every system like a drawn blade. The Earthshaker, Sarah corrected, is currently docked at our lunar shipyards, undergoing routine maintenance. But you're right about one thing. This is a test. The question is whether the Galactic Council meant what it said when it voted for humanity's full membership, or whether that vote was merely fear-speaking. High Arbiter Zixaxa, who had been listening in silence, finally spoke. What resolution do you propose, Ambassador Chen? Sarah had prepared for this. Prepared for it the moment she'd heard about the hegemony cruiser entering human space. Joint development rights. The hegemony maintains legal claim to the system, but recognizes human presence and development. Profits from mining operations are split 60-40, with the larger share going to the active developers. Us. In exchange, we provide the hegemony with technical expertise in dimensional detection, which will help them locate resource-rich systems more efficiently. She could see the calculation in Varix's eyes. What she was offering was actually generous by galactic standards, and it came with access to technology the hegemony couldn't develop on their own for decades, maybe centuries. 50-50 split, Varix countered. 60-40, with a renegotiation clause in 20 years. Take it or leave it, counselor. Because the alternative is that we dig in, refuse to evacuate, and you have to decide if a minor mining colony is worth starting a war with a species that can tear holes in reality. The silence stretched. Then Varix inclined his head slightly, as close to a bow as hegemony pride would allow. The Thrace hegemony accepts your terms. As the session ended and delegates filed out, many of them glanced at Sarah with new understanding. The Earthshaker had won them a seat at the table, but this demonstrated that humanity knew how to use that seat. They could be diplomatic when it served their interests. They could offer mutual benefit rather than just mutual destruction. But the implied threat was always there, unspoken but undeniable. We can afford to be generous because we're strong enough that you can't afford to refuse. Sarah returned to her office and composed a message to Governor Rodriguez and the Epsilon Eridani colony. Crisis resolved. Joint development agreement reached. Stand down defensive measures. Then she composed a second message, this one to Captain Okonkwo aboard the Earthshaker. Hold position at Lunar Dock. Do not respond to any provocations. Our greatest weapon is still the one we don't have to use. As she sent the messages, Sarah allowed herself a moment of reflection. The council chamber, the Earthshaker's revelation, the unanimous vote, those have been moments of high drama, the kind that will be recorded in history books. But this quiet negotiation, this careful balance of strength and diplomacy, this transformation of fear into functional partnership, this was the real work of securing humanity's place among the stars. And it had only just begun. Word of humanity's diplomatic victory in the Epsilon Eridani crisis spread to established channels and unofficial networks alike. In the grand bazaars of Merchant Station Kepler, traders adjusted their pricing algorithms to account for humanity's new economic leverage. In the war rooms of a dozen military powers, strategists recalculated invasion scenarios and quietly filed them away as no longer viable. And in the shadows between stars, where pirates and raiders made their fortunes preying on the weak, a very different conversation was taking place. The Crimson Fate was a hunter-killer frigate, fast and deadly, crewed by a coalition of species that found galactic civilization too restrictive for their tastes. Its captain, a scarred Vraxian named Kelf, watched the holofeeds from the council chamber with calculating eyes. They have one ship, he growled to his first mate. One. The galaxy treats them like they've already conquered half the known systems. That one ship can exist in 17 dimensions, his mate replied cautiously. It can phase through shields, teleport across light years, harvest energy from. I know what the humans claim it can do. Keltha's tail lashed with irritation. Claims are wind and vapor until proven. The Earthshaker appeared, moved, and disappeared. Impressive? Yes, but they showed no weapons fire, no actual destruction. For all we know, it's an elaborate transport vessel with good special effects. He pulled up a star map, highlighting a dozen human colonies scattered across 3 sectors. These settlements are protected by conventional defenses. Some don't even have that, just mining equipment and hopes that nobody notices them. If the Earthshaker is really as powerful as they claim, why not station it at the most vulnerable colonies? Why keep it at Luna? Because they only have one, his mate said slowly, understanding dawning. If it's at Luna, every colony is equally threatened and equally protected by its potential rival. But if they committed to defending one location, then everyone knows the others are vulnerable. Keltha's smile was all predator. I think humanity is playing the galaxy's best bluff, and I think it's time someone called it. He began plotting a course to the human colony of New Hebrides, an agricultural world with a population of just 8,000, defended by nothing more than an orbital sensor network and the goodwill of neighboring systems. If the Earthshaker is real, Kel said, it will come to save them, and we'll find out exactly what humanity's miracle ship can do. And if it doesn't come, his smile widened, then we'll have proof that humanity's ascension was built on smoke and lies, information that many interested parties would pay handsomely for. The attack came without warning. The Crimson Fate dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of New Hebrides system, weapons hot, broadcasting a simple demand. Surrender all food stores and heavy equipment. or the orbital bombardment will begin in 1 hour. Governor Chinwei, no relation to Sarah or Samantha, though the coincidence amused him, immediately sent an emergency transmission to Earth. Then he began the evacuation protocols, hoping they wouldn't be necessary. The message reached Sarah Chen's office within minutes, routed through quantum entanglement communicators that made real-time communication possible across vast distances. She read it twice, feeling ice form in her stomach. This was different from the hegemony's territorial dispute. This was naked aggression, a test of whether humanity's protection extended beyond symbolic gestures and diplomatic maneuvering. She opened a secure channel to Captain Okonkwo. His face appeared on her screen, professional but concerned. "I saw the alert, Ambassador. New Hebrides. Single raider vessel. How long to get the Earthshaker there? Conventional FTL? 48 hours minimum. Dimensional translation?" He paused. 16 minutes to calculate the jump coordinates safely. 3 seconds to execute. "But Ambassador, we're still running maintenance cycles on the primary dimensional stabilizers. Dr. Chen's team says we shouldn't attempt a long-range jump for another 36 hours, minimum." Sarah closed her eyes briefly. This was a nightmare scenario, a crisis that required the Earthshaker's intervention, but with the ship not at full operational capacity. What are the risks if we jump now? Dimensional instability during translation could range from minor shield fluctuation to catastrophic spatial collapse. Okonkwo's voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the weight behind his words. Best case, we arrive with reduced defensive capabilities. Worst case, we don't arrive at all. And if we don't go? If we let a raider captain terrorize a human colony because we were worried about maintenance schedules, then every pirate and warlord in the galaxy learns that humanity's great weapon has limitations, and our bluff gets called before we're ready for it. Sarah made the decision in seconds, though she knew she questioned it for years. Inform Dr. Chen's maintenance team that we need the Earthshaker jump capable in 15 minutes. Cut whatever corners you have to cut, but make it safe enough to get there and back. Acknowledge. An ambassador? When we arrive, assuming we arrive, what are our rules of engagement? This was the question Sarah had been dreading. The Earthshaker had never fired its weapons in anger. Everything the galaxy believed about its capabilities was based on demonstration, simulation, and carefully worded implications. Disable the raider vessel, she said firmly. No casualties if possible, but make it clear that attacking human colonies comes with consequences. Show them what the Earthshaker can do, but show them we can be precise as well as powerful. Understood. Okonkwo out. As the channel closed, Sarah sent a second message, this one to New Hebrides directly. Hold fast. Help is coming. Stall them if you can. Then she sent a third message, one that would reach the Galactic Council's emergency network. Human colony under attack by pirate vessel. Earthshaker responding. All friendly vessels are advised to maintain distance from New Hebrides system for the next 2 hours. It was a warning and a declaration. Humanity was about to demonstrate that its power wasn't just for show. The Crimson Fate's last voyage. Captain Kelf watched the countdown timer with satisfaction. 42 minutes had elapsed since his ultimatum. The colonists below were scrambling, loading supplies onto transports, sending desperate calls for help that would take hours to reach anyone who mattered. "Sir," his sensor operator called out. Energy spike detected at the system's edge. Dimensional distortion, massive signature. Kelta's satisfaction turned to cold alertness. Classification? Unknown. Pattern consistent with theoretical dimensional translation technology. "Sir, it matches the energy signature from the Earthshaker's demonstration." "Impossible. Luna is 3 sectors away. Nothing can travel that fast, not even—" The stars bent. It was a subtle thing at first, just a slight warping of distant starlight. Then the effect intensified, reality folding in on itself like paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. Colors that shouldn't exist bled to the fabric of space. And through the dimensional tear, 3 kilometers of dark metal emerged. The Earthshaker arrived not with a flourish of hyperspace translation, but with the quiet inevitability of something that had always been there and was only now choosing to be seen. All weapons target that vessel. Kelf ordered, his voice tight. "Fire on my command." "Sir, targeting systems can't lock. The ship is... It's reading as present in multiple locations simultaneously. Our computers don't know which one is real." "Then fire at all of them." The Crimson Fate's plasma cannons discharged, energy beams lancing through space toward the Earthshaker. The human warship didn't dodge or raise shields. It simply phased, its hull becoming translucent as it shifted partially out of their dimension. The weapon's fire passed through empty space, hitting nothing. Then the Earthshaker responded. It didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, points along its hull glowed with purple-white light, the color of lightning in a thunderstorm, but wrong somehow, as if the light was coming from angles that didn't exist in three-dimensional space. Beams of twisted reality shot out, not toward the Crimson Fate, but around it. Space itself began to crystallize, forming a cage of frozen space-time that surrounded the pirate vessel completely. "Engines are offline," the engineering chief reported, panic creeping into his voice. "Not damaged, offline. The fundamental forces aren't. They're not working right. Electromagnetic interactions are suspended within the field. We're dead in space." Kel stared at the tactical display in horror. The Earthshaker hadn't destroyed them. It had done something far more terrifying. It had changed the rules of physics in the space around them, rendering their entire ship inert without firing a single destructive shot. A communication request appeared on his screen. He accepted it with trembling fingers. Captain Okonkwo's face appeared, stern and implacable. "Captain Kelf of the Crimson Fate, you are currently trapped in a dimensional stasis field. Your engines, weapons, and life support are suspended. I can maintain this field indefinitely, or I can release it. What do you want?" "I want you to deliver a message. You came here to test whether humanity's power was real or bluff. Consider your question answered." Okonkwo leaned forward slightly. "We could have destroyed you. The weapon systems you've heard rumors about, the ones that harvest energy from the space between realities, those are real. But we chose not to use them because destroying you teaches one lesson. Capturing you teaches another." "What lesson is that?" "That humanity's strength isn't just in our weapons, but in our restraint. We could be the monsters the galaxy fears. Instead, we choose to be the power it respects." Okonkwo's expression softened slightly, though his voice remained firm. "You and your crew will be released. Your ship will be allowed to depart. But understand this. Every pirate, every raider, every warlord who thinks human colonies are easy prey, they need to know what happened here today. They need to know that attacking us comes with consequences, but also that we can be merciful to those who learn from their mistakes." Kelf nodded slowly, the fight gone from him entirely. He had come seeking to expose humanity's weakness. Instead, he had discovered something far more valuable and far more dangerous than mere military superiority. He had discovered a species that knew when not to use the power it possessed. "The message will be delivered," Kelf said quietly. "See that it is." Okonkwo cut the transmission. The dimensional stasis field dissipated. The Crimson Fate systems came back online all at once, flooding the ship with power and restoring normal physics to the space around them. And the Earthshaker, having made its point, tore another hole in space and vanished as suddenly as it had arrived. The ripple effect. In the weeks that followed, the story of New Hebrides spread to the galaxy's underworld like wildfire. Pirates and raiders whispered about it in the dark corners of frontier stations. Some called it propaganda. Others called it proof that humanity had somehow weaponized the fundamental forces of the universe itself. But all of them, every single one, adjusted their target list to exclude human colonies. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Sarah Chin found herself fielding requests for technology sharing defense pacts and joint military exercises. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitives now sought partnership with a civilization that could bend space-time to its will. And on lunar station Prometheus, Dr. Samantha Chin finally left her regeneration pod. She was thinner, older-looking, her hair completely silver now, but her eyes held a peace that had been absent for 2 decades. They used the dimensional stasis field, Marcus Webb told her, showing her the tactical reports from New Hebrides. Non-lethal containment, exactly as designed. Samantha smiled. We built a weapon capable of unmaking reality itself. And they use it to capture, not kill. To teach, not terrorize. She looked out at Earth, hanging in the sky like a blue marble wrapped in swirling white clouds. Maybe we do deserve our seat at the table after all. The Earthshaker had brought humanity that seat with power, but it was humanity's wisdom, their choice to wield that power with restraint. That would determine whether they kept it. And across the galaxy, watching, learning, and recalculating their long-term strategies, the established powers began to understand that they weren't dealing with lucky primitives who had stumbled onto advanced technology. They were dealing with a species that had studied the galaxy's rules, learned its lessons, and decided to write a few rules of their own. The age of humanity had truly begun.